I'm 53 years old, and for most of my life, I thought I had everything figured out. I believed love had a season, and mine had come and gone. I was married once, had a beautiful daughter, and spent years building a life around predictability. I kept things tidy inside and out. Love that was something I folded up and put away with the winter coats. But life has a strange way of shaking you loose when you least expect it. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please don't make the same mistake I did. It started on one of those heavy, humid Saturdays in early June, the kind where the air clings to your skin and every chore feels twice as exhausting. I'd been putting off cleaning out the garage for years, always with some excuse next weekend. I'd say after the holidays or when it's not so hot. But something inside me stirred that morning. Maybe it was the way the morning sun sliced through the blinds and landed on the stack of unopened boxes by the back door. Maybe it was just time I tied my graying brown hair up in a loose bun, slipped on some old denim shorts and a tank top, and opened the garage door with a loud rusty creak dust floated through the air like it had been waiting for years to be disturbed. I stood there, hands on my hips, trying to figure out where to start. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "Need a hand, Miss Caroline?" I turned and squinted into the sunlight. It was Josh, my neighbor's son. He was 23, maybe 24, tall, lean, and always had that half grin, like he was up to something I remembered when he was a little boy, running around shirtless with skinned knees and a popsicle in hand. Now he was a man. That fact had started to settle into my awareness lately, though I never dared linger on it too long. "Josh," I said, brushing a stray hair from my face. "You don't have to. I'm just making a mess out here." He stepped closer, hands in his cargo shorts. "I don't mind, my dad's gone fishing for the day, and I've got nothing else to do. Besides, I owe you for all those cookies you used to sneak me when I was a kid." I laughed, the sound catching me off guard. "That was a long time ago. All the more reason to pay you back." And just like that, he grabbed a pair of gloves from a hook on the wall and started lifting a heavy box marked Eximes Dix. I wanted to stop him to insist I was fine, but there was something oddly comforting about not being alone in that moment, so I let him help. We worked side by side for hours, sorting sweeping and making small talk. I found old photo albums, a rusted bicycle that once belonged to my daughter, even a box of my ex-husband's tools. I thought I'd thrown out. With each item, a memory surfaced. Some sweet, some sharp. Josh didn't pry. He just listened occasionally, cracking a joke or lifting something heavier than I could. His presence made the job feel lighter somehow. At one point, I caught him watching me while I wiped down an old shelving unit. It wasn't a boy's glance. It was something else. I didn't acknowledge it, but I felt my chest tighten, not out of discomfort, but confusion. I hadn't been seen like that in years, not by anyone. As the sun began to dip lower, casting long amber shadows across the driveway, I handed him a bottle of cold lemonade from the fridge. We sat on the garage steps, sweat glistening on our arms. Silence between us. "You did good today," I said. "Thank you." He looked down at his hands, then back at me. "I like being around you. You know, you don't treat me like a kid." I smiled, unsure of what to say. "Well, you're not one anymore." He chuckled, but it faded quickly. "Sometimes I think you forget how beautiful you are." That stopped me. I turned to face him, unsure if I heard him right. His expression was soft, not teasing. There was no sarcasm, no boyish charm, just honesty. And suddenly my heart felt like it was remembering how to beat in a different rhythm. I stood up too quickly, brushing my hands on my shorts. "I should start dinner." He nodded, standing with me. "Right, yeah, thanks for the lemonade." He walked off slowly, glancing back once before disappearing down the driveway. I closed the garage door, my hands trembling just a little inside. I leaned against the kitchen counter, the air cooler, but not enough to stop the warmth rising under my skin. It was just a moment, a glance, a sentence, but everything felt different. The next morning, I stood at the kitchen sink staring out the window, with my coffee growing cold in my hand. The sun was filtering through the trees, catching the dew on the grass like tiny stars. But all I could think about was what Josh had said sometimes. "I think you forget how beautiful you are." Asterisk, it echoed in my head like a melody. I didn't ask to hear, but couldn't stop humming. I wasn't used to being looked at that way anymore. Not since my divorce 8 years ago. Since then, I'd resigned myself to quiet mornings, book clubs, and garden shows on Sundays. Safe, predictable, uncomplicated. But yesterday shifted something in me. Or maybe it woke something up. I tried to go about my day like nothing had changed. I swept the floors, folded laundry, watered the succulents by the window. But every time I paused, I'd find myself thinking of his eyes, how sincere they looked in that golden light. It wasn't a game to him, that much I could tell by late afternoon. I heard his father's old truck pull into their driveway. I peeked through the blinds just for a second, and there he was, Josh, shirtless, unloading something from the back of the truck. His body moved with that relaxed confidence that young men seem to carry without even realizing it. His muscles flexed as he lifted a small cooler, and I quickly looked away, feeling ridiculous. This was absurd. I was old enough to be his mother's friend. And I, asterisk, was asterisk, his mother's friend. We went to the same church. Socials baked pies for the same fundraisers. I'd held him as a baby for heaven's sake. Still, I baked a second batch of banana bread that night and wrapped one in foil just in case. The next day, I saw him outside fiddling with the hedge trimmer. You'll cut the cord if you're not careful. I called from my porch holding the warm loaf in both hands. He looked up and smiled. I already did twice. I laughed, stepping down the porch steps. Well, that's one way to learn. He met me halfway, taking the bread with a grateful nod. You didn't have to do this. I didn't. I asterisk wanted asterisk too. He held my gaze, that same quiet intensity behind his eyes again. I liked yesterday a lot. There was a pause, a silence between us that wasn't awkward, just full, like it was waiting for someone to say the next right thing. I did too. I admitted he looked like he wanted to say more, but didn't. Instead, he nodded slowly. Want some help finishing the rest of the garage? We never made it to the back corner. I hesitated, then smiled. Sure, let me grab my gloves inside. My heart was thudding louder than I wanted to admit. We worked slower this time. More deliberately, the casual conversation drifted into more personal territory. He told me about his plans to go back to school for physical therapy, how he'd been working nights at a warehouse to save money. I listened closely, surprised at how much he had grown, how much I'd missed while keeping my distance. You're not like most people, he said at one point, handing me an old toolbox. You really see things, hear people. I looked at him, then really looked. Maybe I've just had enough silence in my life to appreciate what's worth hearing. His lips curved into that quiet smile again. That's what I mean. We were kneeling on the cement floor, sorting through a box of old books, when our hands brushed just lightly, just for a moment. But it sent a ripple through me. I couldn't ignore. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. The air felt different, then denser. I cleared my throat. I think that's enough for today. Josh nodded but didn't move. Can I ask you something? Of course, are you lonely? The question felt like a soft strike to the chest, not because it was invasive, but because it was so spot on. I didn't answer right away. I looked down at my hands, then at his still resting close to mine. I think I stopped noticing. I said quietly. Somewhere along the way, I got used to being invisible. He reached for my hand, not by accident this time, and he held it. You're anything but invisible for a moment. I let him hold it. I let myself feel it, the warmth, the closeness, the sudden pulse of something I hadn't felt in years. Then I gently pulled away. Not because I didn't want to stay, but because I needed time. Time to figure out what this was, what asterisk we asterisk were stepping into. I should get dinner started, I said softly. He stood and offered his hand to help me up. Okay, but if you ever want company, even just to talk, I'm just next door. As he left, I stood in the middle of my half-clean garage, holding that warmth in my chest like a secret. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew something already had. The following week passed in a strange rhythm. Quiet on the outside, storming inside. I kept myself busy, trimmed the hedges, reorganized the pantry, even repainted the old bench out back. But in the quiet moments over coffee in the bath before sleep, I kept replaying that question. Are you lonely? It had cracked something open, a door I'd kept shut for years, and once it opened, I couldn't stop noticing how empty the house sounded at night. How long it had been since someone had asked how my day was. How long it had been since someone touched my hand. Not out of obligation, but because they asterisk wanted asterisk too. I hadn't seen Josh for days. I didn't expect to not really part of me. Hoped that moment in the garage had scared him off. Reminded him that I was a middle-aged woman who wore reading glasses and moisturized religiously to hide the truth. But on Friday evening, just as the sky was turning that shade of lavender before dusk, I heard a knock at my back door. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened it. Josh stood there holding a bottle of wine and a plastic bag with 2 take-up containers. He looked a little nervous, like he wasn't sure I'd even answer. I didn't mean to intrude, he said. I just figured dinner tastes better when someone else cooks it. And I owed you a thank you for the banana bread. I blinked, then smiled. Despite myself, that was days ago. Still the best thing I've eaten all week. I stepped aside. You better come in before the mosquitoes carry you away. He walked in slowly, glancing around like it was his first time seeing my kitchen. Maybe it was. I didn't usually let people in, but tonight it felt okay. We sat at the small table by the window, opened the containers, Thai food my favorite, and poured 2 glasses of wine. Conversation came easily. He told me more about his childhood, the awkward years I'd mostly missed while raising my daughter and battling my own heartbreak. I told him things I hadn't said aloud in years, about the nights I lay awake wondering if I was just waiting to grow old, about how sometimes I missed being needed asterisk. I get that, he said, his voice low. I think people assume just because I'm young, I've got it all figured out, but I don't. I feel lost most days, drifting. There was a quiet between us then, not awkward, just intimate, like we were sharing something unspoken beneath the words as the night deepened. I stood to clear the dishes. Josh followed, taking plates from my hands, brushing against me in the narrow kitchen. I could feel the heat of him behind me. Gentle, present, electric. I turned to say something, anything to cut the tension, but he was closer than I expected. His voice was barely above a whisper. I keep thinking about that day in the garage. My throat tightened, so do I. His hand came up, not to grab me, not to claim, but to gently move a strand of hair from my cheek. His touch was careful, like he was afraid I might break or disappear. You're not what I expected, he said. Neither are you, I replied. Then there was silence, not empty, charged. I should have stepped back. I should have made a joke or moved away or changed the subject, but I didn't. I just stood there breathing in the moment, like I had been holding my breath for years, and when his lips brushed mine, softly, uncertainly, I let them. It wasn't urgent or wild. It was quiet, thoughtful, like a question. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I answered when we parted. I didn't speak right away. I studied his face. He looked vulnerable in that moment, not like a confident young man, but someone risking something real. This is complicated, I finally said. I know, he replied, but it doesn't feel wrong. And it didn't, not in that moment. He didn't stay. I didn't ask him to. He kissed me once more, slower this time, and then slipped out into the night with a promise to call me the next day. I stood by the sink, staring out into the dark yard, heart-thudding, fingers resting where his lips had touched mine. Whatever this was, it had begun the morning after I woke up early, sunlight brushing across my sheets like it knew something had changed and something had. I moved through the house in a fog of thought, everything feeling just a little softer, a little sharper too. I kept expecting to feel guilt, or maybe shame, but instead I felt something else alive. Asterisk, still. The practical voice in my head was waiting to pounce. What are you doing? This isn't sustainable. You're 53, he's in his 20s. People talk, people judge. This ends badly, it always ends badly. But I'd lived by those voices for years. I'd let them keep me quiet, keep me alone, keep me safe, asterisk. And I was so tired of safe. Josh didn't call the next day or the day after that. I told myself not to read into it. He was young. Maybe he needed space. Maybe I scared him. Maybe I scared asterisk myself. Asterisk by day 4. I gave up waiting and went about my usual routine: laundry, grocery shopping, and stopping by the local library to return a novel. I hadn't really finished on my way back home. I saw his car in the driveway. He was outside tossing a duffel bag into the trunk. My heart dropped into my stomach. I parked and walked toward him, trying to keep my voice steady. You heading out somewhere? He turned quickly, startled, then ran a hand through his hair. Hey, Caroline? Yeah, just for a few days. My uncle in Nashville's sick dad asked me to go help out. Oh, I said. I thought maybe he stepped closer. No, this isn't about that night. He looked down, then back up at me with a seriousness that caught me off guard. I haven't stopped thinking about it, about you, but I didn't want to come back until I knew what this really meant to me, to you. My throat tightened. I don't know what it means either. I just know it felt right and terrifying at the same time. He nodded, same, here. There was silence between us again. The kind I was starting to understand didn't need to be filled, but it still left a weight on my chest. You don't owe me anything, Josh, I said gently. Whatever that moment was, it doesn't have to become something complicated. You have a whole life ahead of you. He smiled, and it wasn't the usual playful grin. It was sad, but also grateful. I don't see you as some detour, Caroline. I see you as someone who woke me up, someone who made me feel grounded again. Tears welled up behind my eyes before I could stop them. Then go take care of your uncle. Go figure out who you are. Just don't forget where you felt the scene. He stepped forward and pulled me into a hug, a real one. Arms wrapped tight. No hesitation, I won't, he said near my ear. You changed something in me, even if this is all we ever were and that was it. He drove away a few minutes later. I stood in the driveway watching the dust settle behind his tires, heart full and hollow. At once weeks passed, he texted a few times updates about his uncle photos of old record shops in Nashville, even a video of a dog that reminded him of one I used to have. We didn't talk about us asterisk. And I think that was okay because something had shifted in me too, started painting again. I joined a yoga class, made new friends at the local co-op, even went on a date with a man from church. Nothing serious, just coffee and conversation. I wasn't chasing anything. I was simply awake again one evening. I stood in the garage, now fully cleaned and organized. The space was quiet, peaceful, a little warmer than I remembered it. And I smiled because I realized something I wish someone had told me years ago. Sometimes the most unexpected moments, the ones that break all the rules, that raise eyebrows and draw whispers, are the very ones that bring you back to yourself that day in the garage. I thought I was clearing out the past, but I was making room for something new for someone else.